In 1 Peter chapter 4, the passage I want to focus on today, verse 1 says, "Since therefore Christ suffered in the flesh, arm yourselves with the same way of thinking. For whoever has suffered in the flesh has ceased from sin, so as to live for the rest of the time in the flesh, no longer for human passions, but for the will of God." He says, arm yourselves with this type of thinking. See, when I thought about the church and the underground church in China, I realized why that fifth pillar was so important. You see, once you have in your mindset that you actually embrace suffering, that you actually are going, you know what, I know it's coming. I've decided to follow Jesus. I know that suffering's going to come. I expect it. I actually want some of it. I'm not running from it. I actually embrace it. You know, it's kind of like when Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5, verse 12, during the Beatitudes, he goes, when they persecute you, when they insult you falsely in my name, rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. He goes, this is actually a good thing. You rejoice when it happens. So when we embrace it and go, man, I'm expecting some suffering. I actually want some suffering, because that's where the eternal reward is. That's what makes me just like the prophets of the Old Testament. It's like, man, I'm in line with them according to Jesus. Once you have a church, like if we as a church here walk out of these doors embracing suffering and going, I actually want some of this in my life and I actually will rejoice in it, then you have an unstoppable force. I mean, think about it. If you got a group of people that go, I'd actually like to suffer in the name of Christ, how do you stop them? See, so many of our movements, so many of our so-called movements in this country are quickly stopped through suffering. It was too difficult. I had to work too many hours. They weren't paying me enough. I already live a busy life. They're asking me to deny myself of these things. It just got too hard. But what if we as believers actually thrived on it? And I thought about this. I thought, you know, this whole idea of rejoicing and expecting it, I thought, in my whole Christian life, I've been a Christian over 30 years, have I ever had another believer come up to me while I was suffering any type of hardship for the gospel? Did I ever have a brother or sister come alongside me, put their arm around me and go, man, that's awesome. Man, you've got to be so fired up right now. You must be rejoicing in your heart because you know your reward is great. And I thought, I don't think I've ever heard that. I mean, when I go through a hard time, when I'm struggling in ministry or you know, I just feel the persecution, people come alongside of me, it's always, it's like, you know what, it'll be okay. We'll get through this. You know, come on, we can get through this thing. And that's not a bad thing to say, where it's like, maybe you need a vacation. You know, I've got this condo. Can I help you get away? You know, can I give you a night off? Can you do this? Can you do that? But not once have I had someone to come up to me and go, what? That's awesome. You must be so happy right now that you're suffering. Because the apostles took this literally. When Peter and John were flogged, what do? They left there rejoicing that they were counted worthy to suffer for his name.